Dude, I am just like fucking speechless. And for someone who's hosting a show, that's not good.
Want to do some Sin Fizz?
It tastes so good, crunchy, but it's so good, soggy. And I know that's controversial to a lot of people.
Fruity Pebbles are on a Prince level.
I have never even heard of any artist doing anything like this.
And that's why we make art to manifest something from the void.
Bam, 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 bam. Like, you know how to wake everyone the fuck up.
And what you have to remember in the creative world is what makes you different is what makes you valuable.
Welcome to Unshut, a place where if at any point you feel like you need to shut the fuck up, don't.
Okay, now I'm totally ready to go.
Amazing. How's your day
Okay.
going?
I woke up like I don't know, 15 minutes ago.
Dang, and you're already like, you've got the leather jacket, you've got the hat, like, you look great.
So do you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for making the time. I know you've had a pretty busy week, so far. And yesterday you had a very long day, which we're going to get to talk about that a little bit later. But thank you so much for making the time. I'm so fucking stoked to have you on.
I'd love to hear that. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be alive.
Amazing. So am I. And listen, we have so much to talk about, Mark. So
Okay,
we're going to jump right in. Are you ready?
let's do it.
You had a very busy day yesterday, and I knew your whereabouts. I sound like a stalker, but can you tell everyone what you were up to yesterday?
We were shooting a video. Is that what you knew about? Because I
Yeah.
also went to Goth Pinball Night last night, so I don't know, which was
Yeah.
awesome. We have it every week at the pinball bar here in Minneapolis. Yeah, we shot a video yesterday.
What can you share about the details that's going to be coming out for that video? You don't have to give us too much of a spoiler, but give us something exciting to look forward to.
I've been doing this indie thing for a long time, so it's like ragtag, Mark, you got to shoot videos. We don't have $1 million budgets or crews or anything. It's like I have a group of people that I've been making videos with for about 18 years now. And it's a small group of people that I can call and we pull favors, we get equipment, we run and gun, and it's like the best time in technology to make videos. We have an amazing library downtown. I called them the manager of the library and I was like, hey, can you get us in? And so she gave us sort of like a full access to the library, and we used a lot of sort of like liminal backrooms looking spaces in there. My videos are all sort of surreal, like horror monster themes usually. This is about like a sort of a Matrix kind of based low budget thing about Mr. Smith in the Matrix, kind of that kind of thing.
Well, listen, I always say budget never matters when you have a vision. You know what I mean? And so far, what you've been doing, I went down the rabbit hole even just last night. Dude, I was up till 2 a.m. in the morning and I could not stop watching. I
Oh
was
shit.
going down the Mark Mallman literal rabbit hole, okay?
Somebody was. I appreciate that. There's this woman on TikTok who lives in her car, supposedly, and it's not like one of these van life kind of situations. I don't know if you've seen her before. It's a one-person car, and she rebuilt like a house in the car. Have you seen that?
I
And
have
she can
not.
she folds the seats down, and it becomes a table. And then behind her, she's got all these plushies and this fake candlelight. She's got a projector, and she watches movies, and she kicks back. And the views on these are insane. I mean, like 10, 20 million views on her videos. People love it. And some of it's shot with a helmet cam and some of it's just shot. I mean, you can tell that it's not DSLR. Like the production is good, but the content is interesting. I think that sometimes, what is being revealed in the last 10 years, since we all have access to basic amounts of visual technology, most of us, a lot of us, that gets into a whole level of class and privilege, but a lot of us have access to some amount of video recording equipment. And I think what it's revealed is that production is inferior to the content. So if you have an interesting idea, that's what's going to keep people engaged. And I think also if you remind yourself that when I go to watch something, I want to find value in it. And it's like, it's not a formula. It's not an advertisement or a con. It's like make some art that you find interesting and give it to them. Because I find this woman's videos fascinating because of the content, like what she built in the video. It doesn't matter to me like how it's shot or what equipment it's shot on, but Hollywood kind of brainwashed us for a long time that it has to have a certain look. And that's not true. And now we live in a time where you can make a low budget video and it holds just as much weight as a big budget video. So yeah, it's cool. It's
Dude,
really
I
cool.
couldn't agree anymore. I feel the exact same way. And I feel about, that's exactly how I feel about visualizers when it comes to music. I'm like, I feel like we kind of got away from it for a little bit, but now I feel like it's slowly starting to come back. And I'm excited for it because I do think that we have to drop the mentality that you have to have this big budget in order to do really good visualizers for your music. Your ideas are the budget. And I hope that, especially up and coming artists, newer artists, younger artists, they can stumble upon this episode, watch what you've been creating, and see how, in my opinion, you've been so ahead of your time for a hot minute, sticking to the monsters and sticking to this like sci-fi connection. I think it's so genius.
Monster movies, monster movies. Monster movies, monster movies.
That is such a good motivator to up and coming artists for them to know, listen, whether it was high budget, low budget, it didn't matter. He had a vision, he's been sticking to it, and that's why he's been able to do this for so long, if that makes any sense.
I appreciate that. I've written a few screenplays and had one optioned, a director in LA. I've worked in tangentially with film for my whole life. Entertainment, TV. I started working in television when I was 23 and I switched over to film scoring movie trailers in the mid 2000s, and now I write for TV shows and stuff like that. This director in LA said, you should write a screenplay, give it to me. So I wrote it, and he started pitching it. It didn't go past that, but I had done a TV show with this director as well, and we did get that into development phase in like 2009. And so this was in like 2013, and I'm like, I don't know how to write a screenplay for a feature. Now I've written four, but there's this book, Blake Snyder, Save the Cat. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it's a method in screenwriting called Save the Cat method. I'm not an expert on this topic, so I might paraphrase some things, but I'm reading this book, and I have this idea for the screenplay at that time, and it's like, I'm going to write a screenplay where the monster wins, and it's a really slow, dark movie and everybody's sad. And that's what I really had this vision for this screenplay, right? And I'm reading the book, and Blake Snyder in there, he says, write the screenplay you want to see, not the screenplay you want to write. And what I realized then was that I didn't want to see the movie that I was writing. I didn't want to see it. How weird. And what I wanted to see was a movie where the protagonist wins, not the monster, that's upbeat and bright and flashy and exciting and fun. I basically, wanted to see Godzilla -1, right? And so more thinking of that over the years when it comes to making a video, obviously you're constrained by budget, but when you make an album, it doesn't take a lot of money. It takes some money to make an album. What you realize is when you write what you want to write, that's your ego talking. And your ego is drawing on a lot of your insecurities. It's drawing on your need to be validated, all these things that really like prevent you from communicating. When you go and you write the movie you want to see, that's your soul talking. That is what moves you. And when we speak from our soul as creative people, that is an instant connection to a certain person, a person who's on your same wavelength, who's like, because we're all similar. We're all people. We're all human beings. We're all united by our soul. And so when I just think, okay, what video do I want to see? What song do I want to hear? Instead of what song do I want to write? What video do I want to make? I feel like the work comes out a lot more successfully than the ones where I had like a vision from my mind versus a vision from my heart. And it's weird to think of that when you're like, oh, my heart wants a video of a private eye chasing the Mothman around the city.
I know the Mothman, but we don't speak, and that's fine. His hair was long and black back then, and his eyes were blue like mine.
But it is like, oh, hey, well, and I think the way to do that is be like, what music do I want to put on right now? And whatever music pops into your head, that's what your soul wants. And that's why we make art, to manifest something from the void that resonates with ourselves. And then when it resonates with our heart, it will resonate with others. The goal isn't, I don't think, to become rich or famous. Obviously, I haven't lived my life by that. And the goal is to enrich yourself and the world with your art.
Well, dude, if this is the inspiration and knowledge and love and passion that's coming out of you within 15 minutes of being awake, I can't wait to see what's the rest of the interview going to look like, all right?
Well, we'll see.
I don't know if Brendan got to tell you, I ask guests questions they've never been asked on record before, and it's a very creative, collaborative type of episode. And obviously, we'll talk about your music, your projects, but I have a very, what I like to consider a very unique way of honoring the guests that I have on. And when I tell you, Mark, with you, I could have easily made this a 4 fucking long episode because there was so much inspiration to pull from. So I love hearing you talk about the inspiration and the motivation behind what it is that you're doing because it shows in my notes. I was like, I can do this segment and I can do this and I can do that. I mean, it was so crazy to try to condense it all. I think it's so refreshing to hear it for sure. I love it. I'm super pumped.
One thing that, I was talking to someone recently about careers in the entertainment business and in music especially. And I said, in music, your career works backwards. When you're a doctor, you learn, you peak when you're older. But a lot of music careers, someone's first or second record is the biggest thing they ever do, whether it's like an older band like the Violent Femmes or maybe, a lot of pop artists, maybe Lord's early stuff will be the stuff we all like the best, right? The earliest stuff. And then you have this career where you go on and you grow, but from the public perspective, it's still all about the early stuff. When you were young, when you were hot, when you were popping, But what happens is you either quit or you don't care, For 99% of artists in the world, it's not what we see. It's not what we know. 99% of musicians are not Lord. They're not the Violent Femmes. They're not known. They're playing at the bar down the street. They're writing songs in their practice space. Friends, our community are the real musicians that impact our lives on the day to day. And so how that parlays into what you're saying is, I think any creative person, whether they're funded by like Interscope Records, funded by nepotism and their parents or a side job, or they don't have any money, if they just continue on their path and continue to create. Last night at Goth Pinball Night, there was a table and this zine collector was there selling a lot of horror and really goth related zines of poetry of his. And it was like 15 years of work. I saw the full body of work, And so I think one thing that capitalism, in that it's pushing the beginning of an artist's career is we miss out on the full breadth of an artist's work. But if you look, at an artist's career later, like Joni Mitchell or somebody, they have this amazing shit that they did later in life too. I'm not comparing myself on that level, but I just think that we can find a lot of rewards in looking towards artists that have long careers as well, because chances are they're super productive. You just haven't seen it because it's not being shoved down your throat.
No, you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree anymore with what you just said. And that kind of ties into my question for you because I've been so excited to ask you this just because of how long you've been doing this for, Mark. Would you say that one of the most constant things in your life has always been marching to the beat of your own drum?
I think yes. There is also this thing that all musicians, artists, creative people feel when you're entrapped, not entrapped, but when you have to, pay rent. And that's something that we all do. And it's not a bad thing. And it's not something to be diminished. But at the same time, there is like, well, if I make this catchy enough, then I'll be able to get out of my day job, right? So like Keith Richards has this quote that I really love. It's like, the only reason I became a rock star was to get into the recording studio. He knew that like in order to make music full time, they had to become rich and famous. And you don't really have to do that anymore because you can record at home and, so it's a little bit easier. But I think that if an artist says, I've fully 100% lived by my own heart, by my own drum, their whole life, I think that would be really amazing. Myself, truthfully, you have to fight against that. There's this thing on TikTok where like a TikTok guru will say, don't chase views, don't seek going viral, because what'll happen is, because TikTok's really about all your collective views on your page, not just the one. The idea is if you're constantly just chasing virality, you're going to have a mishmash of desperately seeking fame on your TikTok account. And nobody wants that. They want authenticity. They want belief. They want conviction to a vision. In the long run, it's better just to be consistent with your one thing and people deep dive it, People jump back and they're like, oh, I want to watch this whole series that came out. Well, Severance is a great example. Severance came out, nobody cared. Season 2 came out, all of a sudden everyone's deep diving it, you know? And the goal, I don't think Ben Stiller's goal in writing Severance was, and I don't really know this, but it was like, let's please the masses with a super big hit, the greatest TV show ever. I think Ben Stiller's a brilliant screenwriter and director, as proven by Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And I think that he just made Severance from his heart. And that's why it resonates with us, you know?
Dude, totally. Is there a part of you that can recall being in a place where you felt like you wanted to not march to the beat of your own drum during any of these projects that you've done?
Absolutely. You know, when you get signed, especially to a bigger indie, which I was, and when I first signed to Badman Recording Company, they had some cool artists on there, and they're a great label. They have Innocence Mission, they have My Morning Jacket, they had Mark Kozilek. They had some really cool indie stuff, and I was super excited about being on that. I chose that label of the labels that were trying to, you know, offering me deals at that time period. I chose that label specifically for the quality of artist. But he had also signed Patrick Park, who's a friend of mine, and Patrick got picked up by Hollywood Records. And there was this thing, especially in the mid 2000s, where indie artists were getting picked up by major labels. And then, you know, you have that Keith Richards opportunity to get all your songs to all the people. And so you start thinking, you know, oh, I better write a hit song. I better write a hit song, you know? Which, I mean, I don't think the Arcade Fire, when they made The Funeral, were thinking, let's write a hit song, but they ended up writing a whole record that's amazing, you know? Or Management, there's this famous video of Management playing kids on TikTok where they're just playing kids to like 8 people. Or that Chappell Roan video you've probably seen where she's singing just to like 6 people in the park. I think, you know, it's like I came to the table and I wrote a record that could be picked up by a major label. And I wrote a few songs that could be radio hits. And it wasn't by fault of the label that it didn't happen. It just doesn't happen to people. You know, it just doesn't. Like there's so many artists writing music out there and touring, and there's just a select few that get huge. There's a lot of opportunities, you know, where you do have to, like, okay, here's an example. You're on tour and you're playing for a room of, you know, a bar, you're in El Paso, Texas, and you're paying for 150 people in a room, and the staff is depending on those people's tips. The bar is depending on people to show up and enjoy the show. It's a very working class musical experience that most of us go through on the road. And so you feel the crowd wants more upbeat songs. You're like, oh, I just played this really upbeat rock song. We should play more of those, you know? And it's like, you can have the ethic to not read the room and just give your show, or you can have the ethic to read the room and give the show that the audience wants. And neither of those, I think, are bad. They're just offering different things. So there's like 2 examples of times where I did change my creative approach, but it didn't change my level of expectation I have within myself to deliver quality. Like if I can sense a crowd in a room wants heavier stuff or wants more narrative songs, I'll change the set. It's no problem. And there have been times when we were on the road and I could tell like we're booked, you know, we're in Tucson, Arizona, and they booked us in a club. We needed a show and we got this club and they're here, but the audience just wants to hear cover songs. And I don't want to clear the bar because then the bartender's not going to be making tips and the staff is going to lose money. My goal at that point in a situation like that is compromise. But if you think of a compromise in like an artistic integrity way, it works against you. But when you're in that situation and you think of how can I compromise to take this situation to the best possible place? And then you're like, okay. And that night I was thinking of, we did cover songs in this lounge and people loved it. It was small, a tiny handful of maybe 30 people in this lounge, but we needed the money. They needed entertainment and it all worked out. So I guess those are 3 examples of how, you know, this idea of compromise. Like if you and I say, where do we want to go to dinner? And we compromise on a place to go, that's generally seen as a positive thing. But sometimes when we're like, well, why did you compromise on your second record, Liz Phair, or on your third record, Liz Phair, and put those pop songs on there? And it's like, it's risky in a way, you know? So I could go on about Liz Phair all day, but
dude, I fucking love Liz Phair.
yeah, I think she's a great pop songwriter, you know? It's just that she started from a place where she received backlash when she did write huge pop songs. She might have been better going the Charlie XCX route where she was writing huge pop songs for other people and continuing to write. Oh my God, could you imagine if there were 10 different Exile in Guyvilles? I would die.
It's so valuable to hear you say this, though, because I do think that one, reading the room is so important. And all I kept thinking about while I was hearing you talk about this, I'm thinking of all the videos, because again, I went down the rabbit hole about you,
Hmm.
of all your live performances. And it's the reason why so many people do say you're one of the best live performances they have ever been to. Because, I mean, the switch up on even just like you're going to purposely play off key on the piano and be like, bam, 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 bam. Like, you know how to wake everyone the fuck up, but you also know how to give them what it is that they're looking for in those shows. And I'm like covered in goosebumps because that was not really something I had in my notes, but it's
Yeah.
just something that I remember very vividly thinking like, oh my gosh, this really does explain why people love to go see him live. And I think you just said it so spot on. It's because you have learned through doing this for so long how to read a room. And I love that, being mindful of everyone else's position in the room. I love
Yeah.
it.
You know what, to go back to movies, I think about this a lot when I talk to like the success of a younger person who's starting out in the music business. If you just think of the archetype of two movies where the son of a business owner gives them a job, and you have movie A, where the son of the business or the daughter, let's just say the child, we'll remove gender from this. The child of a business owner gets the company. And in movie A, they start at the top. And in movie B, they start at the bottom in the mailroom. They're usually two different movies about two different things, but they're both about learning from failure. Movie A, the child can't do it and everything falls apart and the company falls apart and they just can't do it because they lack the experience. Movie B, the child starts in the mailroom and they work their way all the way up and are president of the company and they run it really, really, really well. And I would see that when I worked in the TV news. You'd have reporters that would come in and they only did reporting. This was in the 90s and the 2000s. And they only did reporting and they would have a certain style. But there were other reporters that would come from small news markets where they were writing, filming, editing, and sometimes anchoring their own stories. They did the whole thing. And that's not their goal. Their goal was just to be a reporter, but in that they had to learn the whole thing. And the quality of their work was just better because all of a sudden you become this octopus kind of like Cthulhu kind of multifaceted, multi-tendrilled person that can be at least adequate on every faction. You know, I always say like when you're on the road, you don't learn from playing for 1,000 people. You learn how to be a good performer by playing for 10 people. That's what it is. It's like lifting weights but reversed. Like 1,000 people is 10 pounds and 10 people is 1,000 pounds, you know,
Dude,
and that's what's going to make you strong.
1000%.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And I think also just in general, taking it out of the musical context or just the performing arts in general, anything in life, especially entrepreneurs out in the world, this is such good knowledge because I know for me personally, I have always had the mentality that I cannot delegate to people what it is that I'm trying to get done if I don't know how to do it myself. But if I'm able to do it all, not because I was so good at it, but because I wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty, it's easier to later on when you are awarded or afforded the position to be able to delegate a little bit, you are able to delegate a lot better. And people want to work for people that aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. So it's just fucking genius. I love hearing
Yeah.
you talk about this.
Right. Like success in life, whatever success means, that's a different story. But it isn't about becoming a master of every technique, but it's about understanding the process. So I think we see it a lot when we like go out with our friends to restaurants and someone is like has a really good rapport with the server. And then at the end, they like tip extra and they just get it. And you're like, oh, that was so nice. And they're like, oh yeah, I used to do this. I used to do this. I know exactly what they're going through and they know how to order right. And it's something that like that experience just reflects back into the world. I toured on bass for Vision Video 2 years ago, and that's not my primary instrument. I've played it at my job for a long time as a composer. But once I was playing every night in these clubs, I was like, wow, yeah, my bass lines are a little too complicated. I didn't write the bass lines. He writes simpler bass lines, Dustin. And I was playing these simple bass lines and I was thinking, oh, this is all I need. But, you know, I know this director in LA who, you know, takes acting classes. And he's like, oh, a lot of directors take acting classes so we know how to direct actors so we understand their experience. It gives us a better collective. So, and there's that story about the rugby players who took ballet lessons and just killed it the next season. So you're never ever going to go wrong from learning in life. Learning will make you stronger and it'll make your life deeper and richer.
Dude, 100%, which is so gnarly because I was just talking about football players taking ballet and just dance
Oh, wow.
classes. It's so fascinating. Literally, just a few days ago, I was talking about this. So I'm like, this is just like so spot on for me. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
I'm like in awe.
ballet story I love because it also like shows us how the patriarchy holds everybody back and patriarchal cliches might be robbing even the most like quote unquote perceived as masculine sort of things as football or rugby, which, that's all social construct anyway. But what's interesting about it is like, do you want to win the game? Or do you want to follow these norms of what the cliche football player does? Because you can either win and take ballet lessons, or you can lose and look like a macho football player. And then they won, and then it was normalized. So it's sometimes you gotta when you don't want to do something, when you're resisting something. Sometimes we resist things because it takes work, and sometimes we resist things because society has told us that's not who we are. And what you have to remember in the creative world is what makes you different is what makes you valuable.
Dude, I am just like fucking speechless. And for someone who's hosting a show, that's not good.
No, I'm just talking more than you. I'm sure you'd have as much to say if I was interviewing you.
I
So,
love it so much, dude. Mark, like you're fucking amazing, dude. I have to talk about these like musical marathons. My jaw was to the floor when I was looking at all the hours in these marathons that you were doing. And I'm like, wow, like I have never even heard of any artist doing anything like this. But I want to honor those marathons on the show real quick because I think it's so incredible that you did them. And what I want to do with you, Mark, is I want to give you marathon scenarios real quick, ask you some questions on what you would do in the future for any future marathons, if that makes any sense.
yeah, to give the listener backstory, there's like it's like playing for a long time, right? And people do it. People have done it. It's not anything that I'm going to claim. The first one I played 26 hours straight with rotating backup bands. The second one I did 52 hours, and the third one I did 78 hours straight without backup dancers. And that was the first or backup band, no backup dancers. And that was the first time I really achieved what my goal was, which was to hallucinate on stage without any substances and just see what my body does on automatic. But it is a very sensational concept when you treat marathoning as a publicity stunt, speaking on part of Jay-Z, who did it as a publicity stunt, which is fine, whatever. Or if you do it as like a world record or something. But me I went to art school, coming from a performance art background, I think about this quote by Van Gogh often: there is something inside of me, what can it be? Or sometimes it's quoted as, there's something inside of me, what is it? When we go on a quest, for instance, when you watch Indiana Jones movie and Indiana Jones goes on the quest for, something, whatever, the Ark of the Covenant. He's going on a quest for the Ark of, it's fun to watch his adventure. Of course, movies aren't real, but but in this story, it's fun to watch Indiana Jones' response as it happens. There's snakes in the pit. Oh, he reacts and we react through him. If he'd already been on this trip, that wouldn't be a movie. That's not a movie. Oh, I've already been here. I've already done this. So I think when we create, whether it's the live experience or when we're writing, we want to writing books, which I've written books to, my second one. We want to write and we want to create from a place of never having been there before. And it's very risky because it's unsafe. So with those things, I was like, well, can I do this? I don't know if I can play for 78 hours. I don't know if I can stay up for that long, and I don't know what I'm going to say once my batteries are gone. So the viewer and the artist are experiencing the moment at the same time. That's what's the thrill about a live concert. And I feel like that was the thrill to some people about those shows. I've thought about walking across America and live streaming it with a mic. I've always wanted to walk across America. I'm getting older now, so I don't know. It's still possible. Sometimes these side projects can eclipse your main project. So in life, you have a limited amount of time to do whatever you want. If you're not oppressed, which we're all oppressed a little, but if you're not really oppressed, a lot of people can't do whatever they want because they're born into a system that doesn't afford them that, right? And it is like, okay, well, I don't really want to play for 100 hours because there are people that have done it and they're doing it for different reasons. I already figured out my reason. And then with Marathon 4, it was a catalyst for me to do like, oh, at that time, webcasting wasn't as popular. We were really one of the first people ever to do a mobile live stream across the country that was a concert. And no one's done that. And it's not about being first, but, the root of music does come from long form music performances. Tens of thousands of years back, tribes just playing for days. People communicating music to communicate messages to tribes far away via volume for long periods of time. It's in our DNA to play longer than 3 minutes with a verse, a chorus, a verse, a chorus. Like it's within all of us to play music for 10 hours. It seems weird, but it's not actually weird. It's only different in the context that we exist in 2025.
Well, I mean, we're definitely going to get to pick your creative brain about some of these marathons now. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The first scenario I have for you is if you were to do a marathon for the longest boat ride, would you choose to do different types of sounds or stick to one looping song?
We have floated, that's funny pun. We have floated this idea twice, and we budgeted out my tech partner on the marathons, and I have budgeted out 2 different boat marathons, and one of them was too expensive, and the other one was too much time, because one of them was 3 months, and the other one was 2 weeks. I would stick to the same song. It's important for me to like really be immersed in the one thing because then it doesn't because that stretches over the whole time period and it does become its own singular story. So I would stick to that.
Amazing. If you had to pick between doing a marathon either on a train for the longest train ride or the longest hot air balloon ride, which one is Mark picking?
Well, there's been a lot of musical train things. When I played keyboards for Patti Smith, she was coming through on Doug Aitken's train that he did across America. I forget what it's called, Station to Station. Have you heard of that?
I have
Doug
not.
Aitken's. It's a performance art train, and it carried musicians, and they would go from city to city, and they would perform in the cities, and they would do stuff on the train. And there's a movie about this train tour. I forget the name with like the band and Janis Joplin. It's a Canadian documentary from the 70s. So I would do a hot air balloon because there's been a lot of train marathons. I went to jump school so I could skydive when I was like 18. And then I've flown on hot air balloons and I find those to be more adrenaline pumping because you're so close to the ground. I mean, it's a great idea. Have you been on a hot air balloon?
No, dude, my hands are so sweaty just asking you this because I'm terrified of heights.
It's way scarier than skydiving because the basket usually just goes baskets go down like this, and sometimes it's right where your knees are. And the thing that he pulls, the flame thing, it's really loud. So we would probably have to I would incorporate that into the marathon. Like I would incorporate that. I would probably in Marathon 4, I had a heart rate monitor that ran into Ableton, and it would control the tempo sometimes. I would probably do something like that, where I could like have it trigger a drum machine every time he pulled the thing, or trigger random notes. But I would definitely, if I was doing a marathon, a hot air balloon, I definitely would use the basket to trigger instruments. I might have like chimes hanging from the baskets and microphones coming down. So that's what I would pick.
Hell yeah, dude. That sounds so
It's a
amazing.
great idea, and when it happens, you have to come.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. I wouldn't miss it for anything in the world for sure. The last one I have for you is how many times do you think Mark can ride a roller coaster performing music to break a record?
okay. It would depend on my age because I go to parks all the time. I ride a lot of roller coasters, and I've started to black out on certain like loop scenarios, or when the G forces, I don't know. I get black out for like a couple seconds. It happens to my brother too. But I mean, I was at Universal 3 weeks ago. So I mean, it doesn't stop me from coasters. It would be interesting to explore coasters because this is a situation where, My marathons have always been focused on subjectivity, and the objectivity end of, I think, reduces music to like a sports, which is cool too. But he wrote it for this many hours. When you're objective about something, it removes the question mark. And when there's a question mark, for instance, Marcellus Wallace briefcase in Pulp Fiction, we never know what it is. It keeps the magic. It keeps the magic in the story, it keeps the what if, and it keeps the art alive. When we don't really know the answer, by removing the objectivity of it, by removing the point system, it prohibits us, I think, from reaching critical mass, because critical mass obviously favors objectivity over subjectivity. I mean, like, we live in a world that favors sports over abstract painting, and no shade on either one, right? I mean, if you said to me, look, we're going to give you X amount of money to do a marathon on a roller coaster, it would be so amazing. I would have so many ideas of how to do this, but it would be really, really, really hard on my body. And I would probably hate roller coasters for the rest of my life. Have you ever seen Hands on a Hard Body?
No.
It's a documentary about, I think in the 90s, people holding their hand on a car for a radio station, and whoever's the last person with their hand on the car gets the car. It shows this dedication and accountability to oneself. It's an ego death to do some of these things. It would be much harder for me to hold my hand on a car for 5 or 6 days than doing these marathons. And when I did the marathon 3, my dad was like, I don't know. I don't know if you should stay awake that long. And I was like, Dad, you had 2 kids. You know what it's like to stay awake that long. He's like, oh, you're right. It's fine. The context of it seems like, wow, you're staying awake for that long, but people do it all the time.
Dude, well, I cannot wait to see if these marathons ever do come to fruition. I'm so excited to see them.
I would really like to find an editor an editor and a producer to make a documentary of the footage, because we have so much footage from Marathon 4 and 3, and it's just sitting on hard drives right now because I just don't have the time or money. But I think somebody could make a great documentary about that.
We've got to start pitching it, dude. Let's
I
go.
know, right? It would be cool. It's a cool story, but whatevs. I'm the artist, so I'm always thinking about the next thing.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're definitely going to use these clips to pitch it to the whole fucking world because we would love to see that documentary come to life. That's so sick.
It could be cool. Could be, depending on the editor.
Exactly. Well, you would have the final say, so that's how we
Yeah,
know it would be
okay.
good.
Okay. Yeah.
Amazing. In a previous interview, you talked about not liking Diet Grape soda. Do you recall this?
You do really ask questions people have never been asked. So I have this thing every year. It's called the grape soda. It's in my life outside of art and outside of music. And it's that once a year once a summer, I drink a grape soda. And it used to be I drank it a lot, but now it's once a summer. And I wait until like the perfect summer day. And last year I didn't drink it because I waited too long and summer was over because I was saving that day. I never know when I'm going to drink it, when I'm not going to drink it. It's a big subject point in my first book, The Happiness Playlist. I think it's funny 2 words, grape soda. For some reason, like all soda, this is interesting actually to me now that I think about it. Like all soda is garbage, right? It's just pure garbage. It tastes great. I'm not denying that. And I drink a lot of soda, but it's awful garbage, right? But the branding of it makes us think that one type of soda is more garbagey than the other. And that's kind of absurd now that I'm thinking about it. Like, I like grape soda because I feel like it's the trashiest, most garbagey soda you can think of. It's just funny. And for some reason, like Pepsi isn't. But really, they both are, I've been gaslit by branding to think that Pepsi is not funny.
I was dying at the fact that I think you called it a sin.
That's funny.
What I want to do with you real quick, just to pick your creative brain, I'm going to give you some soda brand name ideas, just 2 of them, and I want you to tell me just quick or no if it's a good idea or if it's a sinful idea. Are you ready?
Okay, wait. No, I need you to define what sinful will be in this thought experiment. What do you mean by sinful?
As in not good.
Okay, so we're not taking any Christian religious overtones to the meaning of sin here.
Absolutely
so we're just
not.
saying colloquially sinful. Okay, that's good. That's good to know in my decision.
Absolutely. Only because you said Diet Grape soda was a sin, so I'm rocking with it.
So we're saying like, is this soda is just sinful, like in like it's atrocity? It's like atrocity to mankind. There's a lot of weird sodas out there, you know, a lot.
Well, and we're going branding wise. So if Mark Mallman
Okay.
was to drop his own soda line, I'm
Oh
going to
man.
give you two names. And out of both of those names, I want you to tell me if that would be a good idea or a sinful idea.
Oh, okay, okay. I wish there was more than two, but I'll take two.
Alrighty, the first one I have, Sinfizz.
That sounds like a nickname for a drug, doesn't it?
It
Hey,
does.
want to do some Sin Fizz? I love it. I love it. I think actually it's a really good name. It's a really good
Amazing.
name. I don't know what it would taste like, but I feel like it should be spicy, like a lot of cinnamon. And you know what? That could be part of the branding because cinnamon, Sin Fizz. It's got to be red and it's got to be cinnamon flavor, but it has to be hot, or sour. Like it has to be unpleasant to have that kick. I'm calling a company. We're making it, you and me.
This is the fucking power of Mark Mallman, everyone. That is so fucking genius.
Yeah. Well,
The second one I have for you, it's called Sinner Sip.
Sin or Sip sounds like a party game that I would opt out of because anyone who'd play that game doesn't have enough fun in their regular life. But I would say that's a fail. That's a fail. Yeah, I'd
Perfect.
say
So then
that's a
Sin
fail.
Fizz is the winner. I love it.
Sin Fizz is awesome. It's so good. I'm serious. I mean, I don't know any, I'm not in the biz, the soda biz, but it's so good. It sounds like a band name that I would never ever want to see, but it sounds like I love it.
Dude, when I tell you I really could have came up with so many different segments for you, I was not fucking lying. Like I have so many different ones. And we obviously talking creativity real quick. I wanted to ask you, have you ever given any of your personas that we see on the music videos any names?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's funny because I do so much TikTok lately. When you say it's nice to hear you talking about the videos that we make for the songs. Yes. In this video I have called Monster Movies, there's a snake-headed person that we've called that person Maldusa. Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Well, I've selected a few. I
Oh, you
don't
have?
know.
Okay, I don't have to answer them. That's even better.
Only because I took some screenshots of some that I don't know that you would have given them names already. So I'm like, all right, we got to ask questions he hasn't been asked before. And I love your music videos. I love the visualizers. So I took some screenshots and I want to see if they, one, have a name, but if they don't, you're giving them one today. Are you ready?
Oh, this is interesting. Yes, maybe it'll jog my memory.
Amazing. Well, these have to be quick, think quick on your
Okay.
toes. And so that way,
Okay.
the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Okay, right.
First one.
Oh, yeah, that's I don't know what it, I remember vividly trying to get that ghost made. I went on Fiverr and hired someone to make that ghost for like $30. I would say that I would call that Larry. I would guess I would call it Larry. He told me the first thing to come to my mind. So that's Larry.
Beautiful. That's Larry, everyone. The next one I have.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. From Seen My Own Ghost. That's actually a serious song to me. So it's interesting because I was trying to not be funny in that video. Yeah, it's hard for me to not to put humor in work, and I work against it. But I would just say that's like disappeared Mark. Disappeared Mark. Yeah.
That could be a
Yeah.
book and a film on its own right there.
I mean yeah, my next book is basically about a lot of what that song Seen My Own Ghost is about. So that's interesting that you pulled that. Thank you.
Of course. Well, I can't wait to read it, dude. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, next year. So it's a long time for now, but it's done. And so,
Well, we're looking forward to it.
yeah.
The next one I have for you.
Oh, that's Velvet Vampire. Yeah.
Amazing.
And it's for Velvet Vampire, but we call that character Velvet Vampire.
Beautiful. The next one.
Oh, I don't. Okay, what would I name that character? Altered Grapes because it's purple. We were just talking about grape soda, and because it looks like my favorite scene from the movie Altered States, where there's like an eight-headed goat floating in the sky.
Dude, hell yeah. The next one.
That's Maldusa right there. Mhm.
Perfect. The next one.
That's Velvet Vampire again. And
Oh, is it?
yeah, he
Oh, I
was
already
down
did.
at we went down to the Speedway gas station to shoot that part. Soda. It's a soda in there.
So it's the reason why I saved that photo because I'm
Yeah.
like, we're going to talk about, sinful sips and
Yeah.
sinful soda. So I kept it for
We've got
sure.
our brand ambassador for Sinfizz right
Exactly.
there.
Exactly.
Nosferatu.
The last one I have.
Oh, yeah. The makeup for that is done by a famous burlesque person, a drag king named Red Rum, and they do a lot of makeup, and they had done my makeup that day at my house for a different video shoot, and we like took the camera and we just like we're like, well, what if this character, who I need to give a name, was like just doing daily activities? So we made a video just for ourselves of like washing dishes and, walking in on them in the bathroom and stuff like that. But I like this idea of giving the characters just arbitrary human names, so I'm going to give that person the name Greg.
Dude, we've got to turn these into little action figures. I think that'd be so amazing.
Well, yes.
I mean, listen, I would collect them myself. So you've got one customer right here.
Yeah, I have a card game coming out, and I haven't really talked about this, but I'm making a card game. It'll be available on the next tour, and there are characters in this card game that we could easily make into action figures. But right when you said that, there's like 5 characters in the card game. Anyways,
Dude, I am like geeking the fuck out. I cannot wait. I will definitely be like, again, this is the second time you leave me stunned and speechless, dude. I'm like, hell fucking yes.
I know I got to work on that.
And what's funny is that I was also thinking about, I love the videos you make on Instagram with all the music knowledge and everything. And
Mhm.
I loved that I got to learn something new from one of them where I learned about the little vinyls that came in cereal boxes or something back in
Oh
the
yeah,
day. Dude, I was like,
yeah.
okay, so my next question for you, real quick, before we talk about your project that's coming out soon in June. If Mark were to bring this back, what cereal would it be?
It's got to be Fruity Pebbles. Fruity Pebbles is just the goat. It's just the goat of all cereals. It's just a general consensus among all society. That's it. Cereal peaked, and it was Fruity Pebbles.
I always say Fruity Pebbles is my favorite because it tastes so good crunchy, but it's so good soggy. And I know that's controversial to a lot of people.
It's sort of like Prince grew up here in Minneapolis, and I've seen Prince a number of times at rehearse. I've been to Prince rehearsals, and I've gone to Paisley Park for parties, and because you're here in Minneapolis, you're in the music scene, you end up at Paisley back then, and it was great. Prince was especially towards the end, such a just a really awesome member of the community, opening up Paisley for all these parties and concerts and giving back to the community, and just a really sort of amazing person. We'd never had a conversation, but I'm not going to claim that. But I did sing with New Power Generation once, and you get to know everybody because this is Prince's city. Still, there's music, and then there's Prince, and that's just how it is. When people are like, what's your favorite concert? I would say, well, I mean, I'm not going to include Prince because it's just so far superior to any concert I've ever seen. I mean, it's just, have you seen Prince?
Never had the chance to. No.
It's just weird. The whole time, like I've seen greats, like I've seen Paul McCartney. Like I said, I played keyboards for Patti Smith. Like I've seen Bruce Springsteen. I've seen the greats, and you're aware that you're at a concert. But watching Prince is like seeing a ghost. You're just like, is this humanly possible? Like it was just otherworldly, not even spiritual, just like shocking. Anyways, and I think anybody who's seen him would say that, but I've seen him a number of times. And that's how this Fruity Pebbles are on. Fruity Pebbles are on a Prince level. Fruity Pebbles are on a Prince level. And I'm positive that Prince would agree. Prince and I were never friends. We never talked. I was standing in his way one time, and he went, and I walked to the side. It was at a party. And I have had pancakes at Paisley Park, not cooked by Prince, but they were serving pancakes for a while there during the concerts. So I know that he's got a sweet tooth. And I just feel like Prince would agree that Fruity Pebbles are the goat of all cereals.
Amazing. Well, I'm definitely going to back you up on that for sure. I agree. I second and third that for sure. Dude, thank you so much for your time and answering some of these crazy random questions with me. Lastly, I would like for you to just tell everyone, when can they expect this project that's supposed to be coming out in June? We won't hold you to it, but when can we expect it?
Yeah, Virgin is our distributor for this album, so they set the release date. It's June 27th. Magic Time is going to come out. It's a paranormal concept record, so it fits. We're shooting a video tonight about a ghost. So I mean, yeah, and it's gonna be really fun for the next year to just promote the record, go on tour, and live like a working class musician, and do projects, and be creative, and celebrate life, and be musical.
And don't forget to name these characters, please.
Yeah, the characters in the videos. Yeah, for sure.
Because you never know. So maybe one day we're going to be collecting the little action figures with the board games, with the books, with the sodas from Mark Mallman, the cereal boxes. Look at this. Like we've got a
Well,
whole fucking setup for you going on.
it's cool because, like the digital age has brought us to a place where we're not gate kept anymore in terms of starting a business. Like if you wanted to make a board game, you may have made a board game. You can just make it online and have it printed and you can make 50 of them. And that's what's so great about this position I'm in, where I was like, oh, I want to start a card game. As it wasn't like this thing where I had to go and I mean, look, I'm just so used to making stuff and not, having it reach critical mass and just doing it myself. So it's really freeing for me to be like, well, I'm going to make a card game now. I'm not thinking like, this is going to be in Target or something, not that I shop at Target, but I'm not thinking that it's going to be in all these stores. I'm just thinking, hey, I can make a run of 100 card games and I can sell them. If I'm not on the road, I could book a table at the art fair and sell my card game one day. It's so liberating and freeing to think that, we can press our own books. We can print things that we couldn't have done like 20 or 30 years ago without a lot of work are really easy. It's very cool. Like we may be reduced in like the scope of reaching critical mass, the scope of becoming famous for what you do, but you're not reduced in the fact that, you could make action figures of something, have them printed, and sell them at your local art fair. And you did it. You did that. That's something you did with your life. Just like this guy at the Zine Festival last night who had his whole body of work set out for me and I could talk to him. I found that much more exhilarating than going to a bookstore and just looking at 3 or 4 books that were published by someone that doesn't exist in the world. It was fascinating once I removed sort of the capitalist notion of how we're trying to be reduced to think there's some hierarchy between, something that is reached the mainstream and something that is not, it's
Dude,
really empowering.
100%. Very empowering.
Yeah, like you could
And
make your own line of shirts if you wanted, and it wouldn't cost a
exactly.
ton. You could sell it, and you could. My goal with the card game and the record, this new record, we're doing a short run of vinyl, and we're like, hey, the goal is to sell through the vinyl and then make another one. That's it. With the card game, it's like the goal is just, I'm going to sell the card game, make a profit, make some more card games. It's like tangible goals. We're so like, it's so much like pushed into our brain that you have to make the best thing ever. You have to become the biggest and best of everything. And why not just have a good time? If you remove the concept of failure from your mind, you're no longer like having to be a slave to the concept of success.
100%. And listen, you are worth all the collectibles, in my opinion. I would be the biggest down bitch for everything that you do because I think you are just a ball of creative energy. And like I said, I could have done a million segments with you based off of the art that you've created. I have always said one of the biggest compliments as a choreographer was when someone can take a piece, visually enhance it, add on to it, make it better, do something off the wall with it, because that means that I gave them inspiration. And that's something I do tie into the show. When I have an artist like you, when I can ask random questions, it's because I was inspired by you. And that's true artistry right there. And Mark, you are a true artist. So thank you so much, dude. Thank
That's
you.
the greatest compliment anyone could hear, really. We're all true artists, in ways. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm trying to figure out how to shoot this video tonight, because it's just going to be me and the actor and maybe one person holding a light. But we've done it this way. This is how we do it. This is how we've been doing it since 2001, just like a few of us. And then sometimes you just get the idea there, but like it's nice to know that someone out in the void believes in you, I appreciate you saying that. And I think also, one thing that we can all do, if anyone is listening, obviously people are listening to the podcast. I think what we can all do is compliment somebody in our life, especially the people who might not be at the middle or end, people who are just starting out, they need the compliments the most because it's easiest to quit in the beginning. That's how the gym is when you go to the gym. And it's hard for me to get into the gym. There needs to be more support in the world, especially nowadays.
Agreed. And you're a ball of inspiration. So I know you're going to pull it off at the video shoot tonight. It's going to be great. Can't wait to see it all come to fruition. Mark, thank you so much for
Hey, I
giving
love
me
it.
your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lastly, can you please tell everyone where they can find your music, where they can find you on socials so they can keep up with you?
Yeah, you can find me everywhere. I just tell people when it comes to my TikTok, I don't talk about my own music on TikTok. Hardly ever. I'm talking about music that interests me and the stories behind them. And the rest of my social media is focused on my albums and my projects and where I am creatively. And my book is called The Happiness Playlist, and it's about how I healed trauma and grief by listening to only happy music for 6 months straight, which was a marathon in its own. Songs, you can hear those on the usual streaming networks. Yeah, if there was anything of my work that I would want people to experience, it's my book, which is weird because I've dedicated my life to music, but so
No,
but it
that's
took that life of
amazing.
music to write the book.
There you go. Exactly. It's so amazing, dude.
You're too nice.
Amazing. Take care of yourself, dude.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, if you've made it this far, don't forget to follow the socials on the screen or in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. See you next week.